welcome to the very first episode of the On the Clock podcast. I am so excited to be here. What better way to kick this off than Dean Mathews, the CEO and founder of On the Clock?
Yeah.
It feels weird to say welcome to the podcast because this is your home, but I'm super honored and excited to talk with you. But let's take it all the way back. Will you tell people, how did this all start?
Sure. Yeah, it started as a passion project back in 2004. So I'm a nerd, right? So I was sitting at my table in the kitchen, and I was on a laptop, and I was browsing through the internet forums, some old business forums, and just kind of started recognizing this pattern where all of these business owners were just looking for an online time tracking system. So I said to myself, I'm going to build that. So literally the next few days, just sat down and started coding, and 4 months later, we had the initial version, which was pretty cool. And it was, it took a while. It took probably a few weeks, a month, but we started getting customers and, rolling forward. Probably about 10 years ago or so, Mark came on, 8-9 years ago, Mark came on board, and we kind of started really forming a company around it, which was really cool. And now we're sitting here with 23 of us and about 18,000 customers. Yeah.
That's amazing and inspiring. So it's turning 20.
Yes.
If you were gonna start this all over again, would you do anything differently?
No, I like the way it went.
Okay.
It was, a lot of times people take VC money,
Sure.
or, then you're kind of married to that, right? And you got, bosses and stuff. So, really for us, it was bootstrapped, right? It was my time mostly, and time and energy. And I really wouldn't change anything. I'm really happy where we're at right now. This is really the best time of my career.
I love it. For small businesses out there listening, and even myself included, was there a tipping point moment where you're like, I'm going all in on it? Because I think there's a lot of insecurity around like, gosh, I really love it. It's a passion project, but I'm not sure I can go all in it. Like, do you remember the moment? It literally gives me chills. Like, you're like, I'm in.
Yeah. I remember I was having a conversation with Mark, and we had just kind of hit like a certain customer point. It was just me at the time, and Mark, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I think we were driving actually down 96 over to the west side of the state. And I just said to him, hey, and we were just talking about the growth of it when it was just me. And I was like, something big is happening here. And it just kind of clicked. And I said, and kind of in that moment, I had been thinking about it, but I asked him, I said, do you want to be part of this at all? Is this something that interests you? And so I don't know the date, but I remember that moment driving down the road. Yeah, that was a pretty cool one.
What would your advice to small business owners, entrepreneurs out there who, again, do have some insecurities around it, but like know they have something? Because we need those. Like those are like, had you not like believed, like we wouldn't be sitting here today. Like what would your advice to small business owners, like keep like an element of keep going?
So it's fear a lot of times that stops people, right? So you're worried that you're gonna put a bunch of time or a bunch of money, or you're gonna do something and nobody's gonna like it. Maybe a fear of rejection, fear of financial loss, fear of lots of different things. But the thing to remember about fear is fear is not real. Fear is just a perception of what might happen in the future. It's not a real thing. It's just your imagination. So you just got to kind of try to push past that and come to that realization. For me, it wasn't fear. I didn't have that, but I see a lot of small business owners, that were just worried about failure in general. So yeah.
So let's dig in a little bit. So talk a little bit more about what On the Clock is, and then we'll dive into some time management efficiencies.
Sure. Yeah, so we are employee time tracking. So clock in, clock out. End result is time cards for payroll. So we do integrations with most of all of the major payroll companies. So it's really simple. Employees can use their phone. They can use a computer. We have kiosks for the wall. They clock in the morning, clock out for lunch, clock in again, and clock out at the end of the day is a typical day. They can request PTO. If they're mobile, we have geofencing and geo-tracking as well, job and project costing. So you can do other reporting on there besides just payroll. So if you need to bill your customers, we have that option in there too. Not to bill, but to get the reporting for it. And really the end result at this point is is that time for payroll, which is really a huge sticking point for a lot of employers. They're using pen and paper or text messages, that type of thing, where we just do it all automatically for them.
Will you talk a little bit about maybe a message to employees that maybe need to understand the benefit of why their time is being tracked instead of like, oh, I'm being micromanaged? Like, talk a little bit about that so they can see or understand better the value of it.
So yes, so we just had a couple projects that are trying to address this. You are 100% correct. As soon as you introduce the time clock, it's like, oh, well, and especially if it's on your phone, they know where I'm at. They're watching me, and is the camera on? All these types of things. But the reality is that it's really beneficial to both sides, because how do you know your hours are being calculated correctly? How do you know if you're just sending text and paper or filling out a spreadsheet? How do you know somebody's not adjusting them or making mistakes or being malicious? So there's wage theft is real. We've had customers try to manipulate our system to try to take money away from their employees. So it's a real thing. So it really it's about transparency. And if you view it as transparency, from both sides, it's the best way to view it. So yeah.
I love that. And again, myself being a small business owner, I've said to people I've hired that are hourly, just send me your hours at the end of the month. And now, and literally gives me chill, I get excited when I talk about things that I'm excited about, but I would say to them, send me your hours at the end of the month. And they were like, okay, well, it took me 30 hours. And I'm like, 30 hours. I was like, well, there could be error on their side, on my side. There's just, and that, again, as a business owner, those are dollars that like I would need if there's inefficiencies on their guesswork. If they're guessing. I also think if they don't have a system, it's a pain for them. I remember saying to people, I'm like, gosh, I hate to have you like keep track of your hours, but I really need that. Now understanding, by the way, that a version of this is free. You can literally get started for free on the clock, which is great. Like I'm using it now for people that I'm hiring, to make it easier for them. And also I have to be efficient with like I don't want any guesswork, because you know what, that hour or two that maybe someone's rounding up or rounding down, I don't know, it's transparency for them, it's transparency for me. And those are dollars that like either they deserve or I need to save.
Yeah. And there's another part too, is that if you are an employer with employees, not contractors, you are required to maintain records. So it's a DOL regulation. So you can get huge fines if you don't have your 3 years of records. So, there's definitely compliance issues that really a lot of people don't know about that most employers should be aware of.
Understood.
So,
as it relates to time, everybody wants to save time and be efficient with their time. How do you promote within OnTheClock and this company a culture around time efficiency, time management? Like, how is that in the fabric of the company? Are there certain things like, listen, you literally were in this seat at 1:59. We were starting at 2. I so appreciate that. I respect that. I feel like, and maybe you're like this too, and maybe you can talk about this, but like when I jump on a Zoom call or I come to a meeting, I get like aggravated if somebody's late, because it's basically saying whatever you're doing is more important than this. And so like the fact that you are running a company and you're a minute early, I appreciate that. Like, will you talk a little bit about, is that in the fabric of the company?
We do our very best. We are not perfect. We tend to, during meetings, tend to sometimes go over a minute or so, which if you're back to back. So, but to be very honest and open, it is something that I am actively working on, hence being here a minute early. But as far as meetings go, we just really try to stay on agenda, try to stay on track for that, as well as come to meetings prepared, with notes, and as well as, no distractions during meetings. That's important. So, if you're on your phone, browsing Facebook or something, you're not listening, right? So, so those are probably a couple of the ways that we really try to make time efficient. It's a lot to do with preparedness and just staying on track. It's in meetings, I have shiny object syndrome, so I have to be real careful with it. You'll start to move, and all of a sudden, you'll be meeting about something you weren't even supposed to be meeting about, accidentally, and that's a problem. Now, if you pivot during the meeting intentionally, that's cool. But, if you just end up off in nowhere land, which, I've seen plenty of times, that really helps with time efficiency too, because you are just getting the things done that you agreed to get done.
Is there something that, like, if you could tell a business owner who's listening or watching, like, what's like the one or two strategies, things, efficiencies that you're like, gosh, like if you do this, this can help somebody listening today.
Yeah.
Like, is there something that how you're looking at your day, your time, your schedule, a strategy that you're implementing around time? Because I just feel like for myself, like I try to be really, really calculated with my schedule.
Sure.
And I'm just noticing that everything is really taking longer than what I think.
Yeah. So for us, we've went through several iterations of meeting structures, trying to get the most efficient use of our time. As far as we're meeting for 1 hour to talk about this topic, and we have set schedules as well. So every week and every month we have meetings that we attend, and they have agendas. So I would say really one of the biggest things is set up your set meetings, come up with a structure, kind of like an operating system for meetings or for your business in particular, and then sit down with your team and agree on those. Understand what you're bringing to the table, and we call it a meeting map. And then you can make sure that everybody's bringing the things to the table that they need to bring.
What is a meeting map?
So a meeting map is effectively, we used a Google Sheet, a Google slide, and we just literally blocked out what the meetings are. So weekly meeting every Wednesday at 3, here's the agenda. And then we took that and then brought it over to the calendar and actually put it in the calendar.
So there's intention around a meeting. And I think that's so interesting. I think it's so helpful for people listening and watching, never entering a meeting without an agenda. Because It's just like, well, first of all, it's like, does it even need to be an hour? Like, what is it that we're talking about, and how long will that take? And I also find too, and this is a little bit easier not working for somebody, but I also question, like, does this need to be a meeting? Can it be a call? Does it need to be this week? Can we do, or can it be an email or not at all?
Yeah, 100%.
Like question meetings.
Yeah, and it really depends on your communication style too.
Right.
So for me, back and forth emails are hard personally, especially if they contain huge blocks of text. So for me, actually sitting with somebody, hashing it out, whiteboard, notes, those types of things, they really help me. That's my style. But understanding your style, then you can structure. Maybe we could just use a shorter meeting. Maybe it needs to be longer. It's hard to say, So yeah.
How do you approach emails?
I used email or inbox zero, which is basically you clear out your inbox every day. So
like that's not something you've just named it that.
No, it's kind of old. I think somebody in Google.
So you literally will not be done until you zero it out.
Correct. Yeah. Sometimes it's at midnight, but I'll get it. Yeah.
And so do you schedule times to work on emails?
I don't think I schedule time. No, it's always there first and foremost in my head. So I'll remember to do it. And I'm checking email, every hour or so anyway. So.
Got it.
Yeah.
How do you handle disruptions? Because doesn't it, like, I find that, and I think I read something where it actually takes the brain 20 minutes to get back to like focused flow state.
Yeah.
But again, it's harder in an office setting. Again, somebody listening, somebody watching, maybe their setup is in the office. Like, how do you approach that without being rude? Like, you know what I'm...
Yeah, I time block my calendar. So, if somebody schedules a meeting and it's during my time block, for one, my calendar, first, my calendar is visible to everybody. So it's a public calendar to people in the office. So they can see when my time blocks are or when my other meetings are. And then secondly, I do block out periods of time, their focus time. So, if I'm, I can go answer my email, right? So, or work on other projects or do research or whatever as I'm doing.
But I think that's important. So you're putting on your calendar, this is focused time.
Yes.
Like, I feel like, I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss, and he says, like, if it's not on the calendar, it's not real.
Yeah.
I find that so 100% spot on. It's like, you're not just going to find 30 minutes. Like, if you need 30 minutes of strategy time, it's got to be on the calendar.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially like as you move up into higher leadership levels, you spend more time with your people guiding them and less time on projects yourself. So, if you looked at my schedule, it's full most of the time. even with the time blocks. So, it's normal for that to happen. But, I think that's just a normal thing. As you move up into leadership, you are spending more time helping others get their jobs done, and helping and guiding and help removing roadblocks and those types of things.
What would you say are your biggest time challenges, or things as you look behind you have been challenging on your time, and how did you overcome them?
So I would say, like I mentioned earlier, the shiny object syndrome. I have that, and it for a minute it spread in the company. It wasn't bad, but we would just veer off onto side projects. But that will definitely take your schedule and your time and your efficiency and everything out the window if you are constantly moving to something that you didn't decide to do. Now, if we decided to do it and we want to pivot, perfectly fine. But what happens is, and I see this, it's not just me, I see it with a lot of people. But if you can identify that and be introspective enough to understand what's happening, then you can stop it.
Do you schedule or strategize your time outside of the office? So personal time, like how are you balancing work-life balance?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty much working while I'm playing while I'm working.
But you love it.
Oh yeah, no.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like when you're not doing it, I'm a big fan of Gary Vee, and he talks about this. He's like, work's my hobby. I love it.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't look at it as like, I mean, like I love this.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, to me, this is awesome. So I think it's like
I often say my work is play. This is really one of the best times in my career right now. But I mean, backing up to work-life balance, I do schedule time with my family and my kids. A lot of times what I'll do, like even last night, my son was asking me to do some things around some projects that we were working on. And, I just got home from work and I was tired and, I just ate and I was like, 5 minutes is all I need. But then I was like, no, I'm going to get myself on the hook. So I said, okay, well, what we're going to do is at 7, we'll go out there. And I got myself on the hook and it was great. So that's one way that, to your earlier question, that you do balance, to some degree, work life. Yeah.
But I think it's so important too. Like I literally put on the calendar my son's tennis at 3:30 on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
That is absolutely not an ideal time for me.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? If I did that once a month, that's okay. And I'm going to look at it on my calendar. There's just absolutely no way that slot would ever be open if I didn't put it on the calendar.
Yes.
It's like, I think we have to put your workouts on the calendar. The same way you're going to put a meeting with the CEO on your calendar. Like that has to be intentional. It's just looking at your time and being intentional.
Agreed. And I would say as well, forget exactly what the topic was, but a friend of mine was talking about putting, personal follow-ups on the meeting. So, not so much work related, but like with his wife, he wanted to remember to mention something a week from now. And he's like, it seemed really weird at first that I was putting that on my calendar. But he said, but the reality is that for me, for him, he says, I'm super busy. And unless I got a note somewhere, I won't remember. And so he just uses it as a mechanism to remember. So I don't see any, I put maybe not personal things, but semi-personal stuff on my calendar all the time.
We have date night on our calendar.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's just It's just being intentional.
It's being intentional. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes there's a little stigma about, well, do you really need to put that on there? But sometimes we do.
100%. I agree. Going back to small businesses and tracking time.
Mm-hmm.
Why else is it important that if there's a business owner listening to this that maybe isn't doing it, why do they need to be doing it?
Well, I think the DOL regulation, like we mentioned earlier, is definitely important, just for a compliance standpoint. So if you do get audited, that you have that trail or those time cards. Even transparency, accuracy, even more. It's about a 2 to 3% error rate when you're transcribing numbers. So, you calculate that over time and, somebody's either getting overpaid or underpaid. It's going to happen. Time, again. So we did a study. We bought a old school time clock, the punch clock, one off Amazon. And we all clocked in and out for the week. And I believe it was per time card for a week's worth of time. It took like 2 to 3 minutes to calculate that. So you got 20 people, you do the math. I mean, it could be hours a week, depending on how many people you have. So you save a lot of time. Time, accuracy, compliance, those are probably the big ones. And it's easier too. You're not chasing down time cards and getting text and pieces of paper and spreadsheets and such.
Right. What are you seeing as the biggest hurdles for these companies that you're working with?
So really the biggest hurdles, one of the biggest hurdles is, like we were talking earlier, is employee adoption, right? I've personally talked to quite a few customers. I try to talk to them a couple times a month where, okay, we have the time clock, we got it in place, we got it all set up, and our employees just won't use it. They're big brother. They're worried about GPS, that type of stuff. So one of the biggest hurdles is really just sitting down with your employees and just kind of saying, hey, here's why we're doing this. It's for transparency. It's for accuracy. It's going to save me, your manager, a whole bunch of time. It's not to micromanage. It's not to monitor and watch. It shouldn't be, at least. You should be able to trust your people.
I mean, again, it just goes back to like that communication and putting it on the table.
Yeah, so instead of just giving them and say clock in and out, how about taking a half an hour over lunch, buying them lunch, and make it a little more, a little more personal.
What's your best advice to entrepreneurs out there?
Best advice, as you're building a company, set your values, set them early, and then embody the values in your culture and create that culture intentionally. Because if you don't create the culture intentionally from the owner, founder, CEO level, cultures will evolve in your company, and you might even have multiple cultures, and that's even worse.
I love it. It's like, don't have it by default.
Yeah.
So you're blowing with the wind.
Yeah.
Will you talk more about the culture and the values and your North Star here? Sure.
Yeah. So 2 things. Our first value is a passion for people. So, and that really is a passion for our team as people. So with that, we really, we have different things in place to build people's careers up, to meet with them one-on-one every week. One-on-one meaning a little more personal meeting than just a business meeting. Like, how are you really doing? What's going on? And then customers too. Those are our other people. So currently we have 150,000 active users per month. And we're even right now we're rolling out a plan. Our specialists are customer success is rolling out with our specialists. Specialists are customer support people. It's called MVP and most valuable player. And looking at the customer as the MVP. So really just trying to really better serve them and be curious about what they're interested in with our system, and then just really trying to help them more than beyond, or trying to help them beyond their initial question when they call in or chat in. You talked about North Star. So we do have a North Star metric. It is the same monthly active users, MAU, and it's 1 million. So we're trying to get to 1 million people that we're helping in a month. So and so we're at 150,000. So we're 15% of the way there.
Love it.
Yeah.
Back to this is interesting. Before we got on here, we were talking about how you look at time. I said I was having a bit of a freak out moment. I'm 6 years away from 50. And you don't look at it like that. But I thought it was very interesting because it's like the macro version of time. Like, yes, you're in the day-to-day hourly. Yeah. So interesting. Like, how do you look at time in your life?
So that's actually a really interesting subject. I've had several discussions on this over I don't know, the last couple decades. Even in meetings, we have a morning meeting every week, and we always joke, okay, it's Monday again, and then all of a sudden it's Friday, and I'll say, oh, here it is Friday again, and it seemed like that it was just gone the whole week. We got a lot done, but the time just flew by. If time flies, it's the old story,
really,
or the old saying. But a friend of mine, Tom, he's a little older than me, maybe in his 60s. But probably about 10 years ago, we were talking about this exact topic. And he told me his theory is that as you move through life, you have less and less time. So it's like your time left is compressed. So that's why things seem to speed up, as you get older, right? Remember summers when you were a kid? Like the summer seemed to last forever, Now, I mean, it's spring before you know it's going to be fall, So I don't know that I'm kind of sticking to that one for now. Just there's not as much left.
Goes into gratitude.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
It also goes into, there's a great book that I read by, you'd like this, you should add it to, you have a book club?
We do. Yeah.
I love it. So look into Essentialism by Greg McKeown. It basically boils down to what is most essential and focusing there. And I think as like I get older, it's like, I don't know, it almost makes saying no to things easier because it's everything starts to get more clear in terms of what your priorities are. But I'd be curious to know like how you, maybe it's even just bringing in gratitude or just the priorities in your life and how that connects to time. Because I think as you get older, like you said, like, and I'm thinking about it now, it's like, it will be fall in a second.
Yeah.
And it's like, how does that come back to how you're living your life as it relates to time? It's like everybody listening and watching is like, wants to know, like, how can they be more efficient with their life so that they're doing things that matter, that are important to them. And going back to, by the way, and I apologize, and then I'll shut up. But I think this is so interesting. It's like, and it's making me more clear because I feel like I need to dial this in for myself. Personally and professionally, you got to be so clear on what your North Star is. Otherwise, you're going to blow with the wind. It's like, what is most important to you? Like my dad was home. We weren't taking extravagant. Like I was playing catch with them at 5:30 after dinner. Like boom, like I don't know, it gives me chills. It's like that's important to me. It pulls on the other side. I have huge goals and dreams. How I'm going to figure that all out, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think you got to get really clear on your North Star because time is all you really have. And if you're not intentional, someone will be intentional for you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, two things to that. If you looked at a North Star in life, for me, it's people. It's really trying to elevate people to the best of my ability, both professionally and at home. And just friends in general, right? Always trying to be there. And to your point on gratitude, that is a big thing. I mean, it really is. It's probably one of the top strategies I use. I know that may sound a little manipulative, but if you're just thankful about everything, and thankful for this beautiful day, I mean, it's really, if you could actually just even say it, even if it's in your head, this is great. I'm really, gracious for it. That would be one way to really just amplify your life.
I agree. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, and he has a great quote. He's like, you can't be fearful and grateful at the same time. And I completely subscribe to that because it's like, you can't really be in a bad mood for long if you're like, gosh, it's just so beautiful out. Like, I'm so grateful for John and Nick, being here. I don't know. There's just it's a muscle that if you genuinely, without BS, work it, people are like, how are you so happy all the time? It's like, I try to do what you do. I try to really just practice gratitude because you can't really be in a bad mood if you're like, this is such a beautiful day. Without being corny about it, I love it.
Sometimes you just got to say it too.
Feels good to say it.
Fake it till you make it.
Legit. It
or
feels
whatever
good
you
to
just
say it. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. As you look at the landscape of entrepreneurs, small business, just the workplace, are there trends that you're seeing around time and different innovations that you're interested?
Is as far as time tracking?
Yeah, or time, I mean, really anything, or wherever you want to go with it. Just innovations coming. Obviously, there's an element of AI. There's different innovations coming. As you start to look at different trends and strategies in the time, I guess, bucket, what's coming? Is there anything coming that you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot coming. I mean, for us particularly, we do time tracking for payroll. We have a lot of big plans for the future. A lot of them, most of them are related to our type of time tracking. So we have scheduling in there right now, which again is time, right? Scheduling your time. That is relatively basic. So for us, our customers are starting to ask for a more advanced time scheduling. So, I think we're at a point now where a lot of employees are used to really setting their own schedule. And then saying, okay, I'm available between 1 and 4, and for employers then be able to pick slots. So it's kind of went opposite to some degree. So to build things like that into there, so the employers can, for part-time employees, can use that different type of scheduling. As far as, again, another part to our product too, we're looking to add embedded payroll. It's not exactly time, but it's what happens right after time, right? You get the time and you pay on it. So payroll right in our product. So really excited about that. So that's really a couple new things. And I think a lot of our competitors, as well as sister type companies, are looking at it the same way.
Do you have a morning routine?
To some degree, yes.
Like, what does the first 2 hours of your day look like?
First 2 hours of my day. So, get up, obviously. There's definitely a period of opening the blinds, seeing the day, and honestly being thankful for it.
Beautiful.
That's one of the first things I do is when I get up, I open the blinds, and most of the time it's daylight. Hopefully I'm not getting up way too early. Sometimes you know how it is with active brains. And, just, shower, clean up. I make tea every morning. I spend some time with family, and, have a little bit of morning time for myself, and then really get into here. Recently we've been coming in a lot more. We are Tuesdays and Thursdays typically, but I've been in almost every day, with, a few of the guys and a few of the people that work, and getting here around 9-ish. So, I'm not a super early bird, but that's the typical routine. So, yeah.
Are you doing your most important thinking work before lunch? I find like I just like to be my sharpest. I have to do like my cognitive proposals or like things that like really take my breath. I feel like after lunch I got to dig real deep to do those for some reason.
I get a lot done in the morning thinking, I would say, research. But the funny thing, like with me, I'm a night owl. So,
interesting.
After everybody's kind of like settled and gone to bed, and that's my time to really start doing research, listening to podcasts, audiobooks. Driving is great for audiobooks for me, or podcasts.
Love it.
I can give it 100% attention.
I love it.
So, yeah.
And I don't mind drive time because I feel like I'm learning and getting so much better through podcasts and audiobooks.
I don't mind it at all.
By the way, it's a great, back to Tony Robbins, he says it's no extra time. Like you can really learn and get better while listening to podcasts. It's like go while driving somewhere.
No, I actually a lot of times look forward to it.
I agree.
The traffic, we're here on Hall Road, so it's not always the best, but I don't mind it because that gives me an extra 5 or 10 minutes.
I agree. Just again, as we look to wrap up, but like to really add value to small businesses, entrepreneurs, business owners listening to this, like what's the number one like best time strategy if you can offer anything? Like, gosh, if people just did this, that they could leave this with something, like what would you say?
So I would say adding on top of doing these meeting maps and scheduling meetings and such, and on top of that, when you're in meetings, having agendas and sticking to the agendas, or pivot on purpose, what I would say. But on top of that, I would say really one of the biggest things for just maximizing your time at work is really just try to be real intentional about the things you do. It kind of goes back to the meetings and pivoting. I think in life we just tend to pivot and move so quickly without making a decision. Some people are definitely masters at not doing that. I've seen them. But I've seen a lot of people and been in a lot of meetings with a lot of, not here so much, but with other companies, to where the meetings and even just conversations in the hall just go completely to the side. So I'd say just be intentional about what you're trying to do for the day. The other thing too is, notes. I'm an avid note taker, and this effectively will become, this is today, things that basically I have to do or other people have to do. And I'll circle them, and I'll cross them off as they're done, or if they're not done, I'll add them to Asana, which we use for project and task management. So this way, very, very little gets forgotten about.
What's your strategy as it relates to writing things down versus digital? Like, do you cross those? Like you were saying with Asana, like how do you? Because I find like, and I really struggle with this, but I've tried Trello, which is really
Asana.
Great.
Yeah.
But I find that, like, gosh, like writing it down and crossing it off is really powerful to me. I feel like what they say is like when you write it, you really, but like I feel that, but again, sometimes the list gets so overwhelming that you have to take it digital. But like, how do you approach that?
So for me, it's really just, it starts here, because I'm trying not to have phones and such in meetings. And throughout the day, I'll carry this around here, or at home I have one too. And like I said, I'll just start crossing them off, and I'll at the end of the day, if they're not all crossed off, they go into Asana, and then I handle it from there. So I definitely am using this throughout the day, and then every morning I go into Asana and I look at my tasks. I was just in there right before this meeting, knocked off about 3 or 4 of them. So, I think like in business or in life, there's this say-do ratio, right? Like, how much do you say you're going to do versus do you actually do? And I think that there's actually a number, like an average is like 80%. 80% of what I say, I end up doing. That seems a little low to me. I think it should be in the high 90s personally. Like if I can get into the 95. And I think this is what really, that in Asana or in whatever tool you use, is what really helps to make you more credible and to allow you to do the things that you say you're going to do.
100%.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing about what you do?
The people, yet again. Yeah, I'm here for the people.
I love it.
I just really like watching people grow and helping people grow and, and being along for the ride.
What do you most want people to know about OnTheClock?
I would say that probably the first thing that I'd like them to know is that we're a people first organization, meaning that's our number one value, and that we really talk about that often, and we really try to build our own internal team up. And our goal of helping 1 million people track time, is really, really a big one for me. So people, that's probably my main thing.
Dig it.
Yeah.
A couple more, and I appreciate it. I want to be mindful of your time.
No,
besides because I just want to dig into this a little bit so people understand this. Besides time tracking on OnTheClock, what other applications does time tracking have? Like, are there other applications? Somebody's like, yeah, you know what? I'm not even doing any of this. Like, I want to do this, but maybe they're not thinking of X, Y, Z.
Sure. So with time tracking, I mean, there might be like 3 categories you might call it.
Yeah, please.
First is payroll, so, clock in, clock out. So hourly employees get paid. PTO as well. So we do paid time off, holiday sick. So, employees can request that and managers can approve it, make sure everybody gets paid. But then, there's, like we mentioned earlier, there's the billing part, right? So say you might have a freelancer or somebody working for you doing video editing or whatever it might be, and they're billing you the 30 hours, like you were saying earlier. You would want to have that so you know what to pay them. Or if you were billing it to your customer, that you know what to charge your customer. So that would be the second category. Third category too is people use it a lot just for accountability for themselves. Like, where did I spend my time this week, right? So you'd be amazed. Like, if you didn't actually track that, that's actually probably another really good time management technique, is to actually track your time on things, and to know, did I spend 20 hours answering email? That's a problem, right? So maybe you should focus on fixing that. So yeah, those are probably the 3 main categories.
Yeah, it's funny, I downloaded the app and I want to do just that. Is starting to, because I was estimating, well, this client is going to take, I'm like, oh, and I was like literally doing some rough math. I'm like, I think this is going to take 25 hours a month. I'm sure I'm not right. And it's going to help me with charging my clients appropriately. So not only is it a burden off of any of the contractors that I work with that are hourly to be like, figure out, because that's a pain. If you don't have a system around that, what are they going to, like, that's a pain. I want to make it easy for them. But also, as I estimate, then it's not estimating anymore. I just think it takes the guesswork out of it. It's just more intentional. Back to being intentional. It's like, if you're running a business, well, that extra hour and a half, you start compounding that, you're wasting money.
Yeah.
And those are dollars that can be put into other places. And so I think just understanding, again, back to Tony Robbins, that which gets measured, gets managed.
Yes.
That's a major thing. Like, just understand, like, wow, I'm way underestimating that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of times too, it's like, I'm an optimistic person. So if I were to look at a task, I would say, oh, that'll take me 20 minutes.
It's taking you 40.
Hour and a half later, you're still at it.
It takes longer. Everything takes longer. And then traffic, and you're not accounting for things. It's like, when you hit that button, it's like, boom, let's see how many hours I'm actually, actually doing. I like that.
Yeah.
How old are your kids, if you don't mind me asking?
They are 14, 18, and 19.
What do you teach them about time?
About time, be on dinner, be to dinner at time.
Important.
We for the most part eat dinner every night together. So, that's important. We have a relatively good routine with them. They're up at a certain, they have school and work. So they're in the non-summer hours at least, or non-summer days. But they get to bed pretty much about the same time, especially my 14-year-old, I put them to bed every night still. I still get that privilege.
I love it.
Cool.
It's beautiful.
Beyond that, it's really timeliness. Like if you say you're going to do something at a certain time, be there. Respect other people's schedules. There's a lot of times, the kids, right? They all run. Everybody's always late, or somebody's waiting for somebody, or whatever it is. But it's like, if you say you're going to do it at a certain time, do it, or do your best.
Don't you feel like, especially in the workplace, that people that you encounter have too much on their plates, and like everyone seems to not have enough time?
Yeah, in general,
do you feel like we're like living in a culture, like it's rare, and I'm really trying to get more like this, where like I don't want to be frantic. I'm really trying to look at my schedule, and I'm like, we underestimate how long things are going to take.
Yeah,
and I think we gotta like really look at our calendar, and like there's going to be things that happen. There's going to be traffic. Something's going to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just less. So you can go. It doesn't mean don't do it, but it just means don't do it right now. Like it doesn't all have to be done today. What about tomorrow? What about next week? What about next month? What about not?
Yeah.
It just feels like we got to step out of this franticness and back to what you're saying. Do thoughtful work.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do thoughtful work if you got 80 million things going.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't all have to be now. And I just think this really plays into like how you look at your time.
Yeah, I think 2 points to that. To your first point, does everything need to be done right now? I think we're in a sense of urgency environment generally at work. It's like, we need to like accomplish this task. Well, let's schedule a meeting tomorrow, right? Because it's fresh in our minds, this and that. I'm getting to the point now to where, how about we schedule it 2 weeks out? Because let's just really be realistic with the priorities here. Does it really need to be done this week? Some things do. Agreed. Other things really don't. You feel urgent when you're in the moment, like if you just got done with a meeting. Oh yeah, rah rah rah. But when you did that 10 times in a day, do you really have 10 super high priority things that you have to schedule tomorrow? No. And then secondly is, I think, the being intentional part, and just being mindful of the way you're spending your time, not going off into shiny objects, staying on agenda, doing what you said you're going to do. To that, one thing that helps a lot is mindful meditation. So, it's something that is easy to do. You got to take your time to do it though. 10 to 15 minutes is really all you need every day. But that really clears my mind and allows a lot of empty space in it for it to be filled up for the day. So, yeah.
Absolute game changer. For me, 100%. What do you use to meditate? Do you use anything?
Nope. I just use up my timer on my phone. So, yeah, that's it. So it's just clear your mind. It's very simple. Find a quiet place. Sometimes I sit out in the parking lot of my car. I park out a little ways, or find an empty place at home. Sometimes a basement or whatever, and close my eyes, set my timer for 15 or whatever, and just, if a thought comes in, just excuse it from your mind, and you'd be amazed. You can actually end up with an empty mind for sometimes 30 seconds, maybe a minute if you're lucky.
I'm so happy you brought this up. I went through a really challenging time about 10 years ago, and I use Headspace.
Oh yeah.
And it's a spectacular app, and it changed my life.
Really?
Like I didn't even realize how much I was struggling with anxiety. But I think and I hope that entrepreneurs and business owners and people listening, if they take one thing from this,
mm-hmm.
they got to take care of their mental health. And it's so important. I think a lot of even just solopreneurs, like everyone's just really gunning hard.
Yeah.
And we got to take 10 minutes, and it's just, it so affects your health. It's a game changer.
It does. It allows you to get on top of your thoughts is what it does, to recognize what you're actually, because you get your thoughts here, right? And that's what everybody thinks they are. But with that, you can rise above and actually look down 100%. On it. It's kind of an amazing thing.
It's so funny. I was so struggling with it. When Headspace was first starting out, it was like probably like 10, 12 years ago, I messaged the founder, Andy, on LinkedIn. And I was like, Andy, how do I get rid of all these like thoughts? He was like, it's not about getting rid of thoughts. It's choosing which ones you want to engage with.
Yes.
And it's this muscle of creating space of like, I don't have to engage with that. It's like watching cars pass on the side of the highway. Like you're going to run out and try to chase after. And then when you realize, it's that muscle of like realizing, creating that space.
Yeah.
But man, I hope that people listening will do that, because you can be better at work if you're better here.
100%.
And I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
Thank
really appreciate this. Is there anything else? This was great. Is there anything else that you feel like we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
No, I thought you covered everything really well. Your questions were great. And it was great chatting.
So appreciate you all watching, listening. The first official episode of On the Clock, Dean Mathews. Check out ontheclock.com. Time tracking made simple for your business. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave a review. We appreciate you. And stay tuned for more. Dean, thank you so much.
Thank you.